When I was 18 years old, I got the worst news. I was going to Harper College. While the rest of my friends would be exploring their freedom in the cornfields of southern Illinois and Iowa, I would be stuck at home. And I was really bummed about this. But someone had given me some advice. They said, get involved at Harper and it'll make things fun. So I took that advice. I joined the speech team, and I revived a pretty dormant Muslim Student Association. You see, I had grew up in a pretty traditional Muslim American family, but I was very private about my identity in high school. I didn't have any Muslim friends. I don't even know if my friends knew I was a Muslim. So I knew I wanted to explore this part of my identity even more in college, and I wanted to make more Muslim friends. So I figured the best way to do that is to appoint myself president of the Muslim Student Association. And it worked out great. I even recruited some friends, and we were having a great time. And then the unimaginable and the unexpected happens. September 11, 2001. And I was on this campus, coincidentally, in Building L, huddled in a corner with my classmates and my teacher, watching the world unravel on the television. It was a transformative moment. I think we knew the world would never be the same, and neither would I. I watched this campus go into panic mode in the days and the weeks that followed. I myself became fixated, obsessed with the identity of the terrorists. How could I share any kind of identity with these monsters, right? How could they claim to do this in the name of my faith? Everything I had ever studied and known and learned, none of that could remotely justify what happened on 9/11. So how could they? It basically led me to rediscover my entire belief system, which was a good thing because it turns out a lot of people on this campus had similar questions about my faith. So as the leader of the local Muslim group, I had to, speak all over campus. I found myself giving presentations on the Islamic fundamentals, and I found myself defending my faith a lot. Tensions were high on campus, so a couple of students in the MSA decided they wanted to hold a prayer protest. They were hoping that this would accomplish two things. First, by praying in the middle of Building L, which was a very high traffic area, they could remind people that we all enjoy the freedom of worship and freedom of religion, and that all faiths should be respected. But they had also hoped it would show people that if they could just see, the prayer ritual, which is not subtle, but if they could see the humble, submissive nature of it, they would see that, by the very definition, it is anything but violent and aggressive and hostile. So that would offer some insight. So the day of the prayer protest comes, and there's a little bit of a crowd. 7 or 8 boys get into formation. Ali is the one leading the prayer. He sounds off, he starts. And some people, they watch. A couple people yell things as they walk by. But there's this one boy in particular that catches my attention. You can tell that he does not like what he's seeing, right? He's angry. His nostrils are flaring, his arms are crossed, he is glaring at the scene in front of him. And suddenly he decides to walk up to the boys, get a little closer. And as the praying boys go into prostration mode, which literally means their forehead is touching the floor, he walks up to Ali and stands at the tip of his head and mutters something along the lines of, "Know your place, dog." And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, oh my God, he's going to kick him in the head. And I think Ali felt it too, because he abruptly ends the prayer, he stands up, and now they're staring at each other, nose to nose, total testosterone throwdown. And public safety quickly interjects. Words were had. We decide, all right, It's enough for today. And just as I'm thanking God for dodging a bullet, Ali says, we have to do this again, right? We can't leave it like this. It defeats the whole purpose. They win. And I'm actually arguing with him, and I think, well, this isn't about winning and losing. Times are sensitive, and we're arguing, and we come to a compromise, and we say, all right, we'll do it again, but we're going to wait a couple of weeks. Let people cool off. A couple of days after this incident, I agreed to hold a group discussion with the InterVarsity Christian group on campus. Their president was a friend of mine from our world religions class, and she said, look, Maham, I'm hearing some things. I don't like it. I want you to come in, maybe help dispel some misconceptions. And I'm like, of course I will, right? This is what I've been doing a couple of months now. But I'll never forget this meeting. I wasn't expecting the 40 or 50 people that showed up. And I got some really tough questions during the Q&A. Questions that I think would be hard for anyone to answer, let alone an 18-year-old, right? And the one that I remember, this girl asked me, why did this happen? I want to know why you as a Muslim think this happened. And I don't know if it was the stress from the prayer protest days earlier, or from the grueling Q&A that I just had, or from months of feeling like I had to prove an innocence, but that is the moment I broke, right? I could feel the burning sensation in my throat, the tears are in my eyes, and I lose it. They just start to come out, and I am bawling in front of 40 people, mortified. And all I can say to her is, I don't know. I don't know why this happened. I don't know why they claim to be Muslims, and I am terrified that this is going to happen again and again, and people like you are always going to hate people like me. And I walked out of that meeting feeling completely defeated. Not my best hour. And just when I think things can't get any worse, it's time for round 2 of the prayer protest. And word on the street is that we might have a bigger confrontation waiting for us. So I'm really, really nervous the morning of the prayer, and I decide to pray. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Muslims, they can pray up to 5 times a day. But and the earliest prayer is at the crack of dawn. But there's a prayer that's actually earlier than that. I'm talking like 3, 4 a.m. And the idea or the point is that if you're really stressed out about something, you can wake up, break your sweet slumber and prayed about it. And as a Muslim who never caught her 5 prayers, that morning I was up at 3 or 4 a.m. That's how nervous I was. And I prayed to God, right? I said, God, please let there be a miracle today. Please let things go smoothly. Let the good in people prevail. So I get to the prayer protest. And it's a bigger crowd. There's more Muslims there to join the prayer, and you can feel the tension. Ali starts the prayer, boys get into formation, and the prayer starts. And sure enough, I see our friend from the protest last time, right? And he's walking up, and this time he's got some friends with him. And one of those friends is holding a baseball bat. And I turn over to the public safety officer who's standing next to me, and I say, what do we do? And as I'm talking to him, I watch him walk right up to the boys and then suddenly stop a few feet in front of them. And he turns over towards us, and he starts organizing his friends to stand in this line, and they create this kind of barrier in front of the praying boys. And at this point, I'm so confused and frustrated, I just go up to him and I'm like, what are you doing? And he looks almost embarrassed, and he says to me, look, I hear there might be some trouble coming your way, and I think it's my fault, and I just want to make it right. So we're going to stand here right now and make sure that nobody can disrupt their prayer and that they can finish their prayer this time. And I stood there stunned, so moved. My prayers had been answered, right? I just witnessed the miracle I had asked for. Man, I totally should have asked for $1 million instead. I later had the chance to talk to that boy, whose name was Blake, I learned. And I went up to Blake and I said, look, can you tell me what changed? And this is the first time I see him smile, and he looks at me and says, well, I kind of owe it to this huge crybaby I saw speak the other day. But through her snots and sniffles, I realized that she was hurting the same way I am. Hurting exactly the same way I am, but carrying a bigger burden than me. And then he bows his head in shame. He says, you know, I suck as a Christian. I'm supposed to help those in pain and lighten their burden, and the other day I'm the one who caused it to you and your friends, and I know that, and I am so sorry. I don't know what came over me, but I'm just so angry. And then I can see the tears well up in his eyes. He's fighting them back. And I think, oh, Blake, you're a little bit of a crybaby too. But that was one of the moments on this campus that shaped my entire path forward. I learned the power of a simple conversation, and that when we force ourselves to listen and learn about another's perspective, even when it makes us uncomfortable, it's critical to our own well-being. I learned that true leadership means that sometimes you see the fruits of your labor and sometimes you don't, but you keep laboring. Those were profound lessons at the age of 18. And they serve as a great reminder for me today. 5 years ago, when I got to this campus as an adjunct instructor, everything had changed, right? This campus is bigger, the programs have grown, the buildings and everything is just bigger, right? But our problems since then have grown bigger too, as a community. The extent and nature of our bigotry, our discrimination, our prejudices, our Islamophobia, our xenophobia, take your pick. Those have grown too. Our communication has become much more digital instead of interpersonal. And the only thing getting more personal are our politics. 15 years ago, I was a clear Muslim other. Today, all of you are some kind of other. Now, this isn't to suggest that having simple conversations are going to solve all of our problems. In fact, when I start to think about how I'm going to help my students find their path forward in a world like this, it feels so daunting. But then I walk through these hallways and I'm reminded of a time that felt just as daunting. You see, the thing is, when you have history with the place and you know where it's been and what it's seen, it just makes you crazy convicted about what today should feel and look like and what tomorrow needs to offer. And tomorrow needs to offer a stronger, better campus. Not a bigger campus, but a more unified, empowered, inclusive campus. A wise provost once told me that you can tell how strong a campus is by the goals that they set. So let's set a goal today together. At Harper's 75th anniversary, we are going to be giving TED Talks on how we became the model campus for inclusiveness. We're going to be talking about how we became trendsetters in empowering vulnerable and marginalized students so that when they walk out of these hallways, they are neither of those two things. Idealistic? Sure. Overwhelming? Absolutely. Impossible? No way. And when you start to think it is, remember this face. Because this face is living proof of that when you help just one student and support and empower one student on this campus yesterday, she can stand in front of you today with confidence, with experience, with plans and a vision and a commitment to a stronger tomorrow. I want to share one last thing with you as I wrap up. Just last week, I accepted a position, a job offer here at Harper College as a full-time tenure-track journalism faculty. And with that job comes the responsibility of reviving our school newspaper, The Harbinger, which has seen a lot of hardships in the last few years. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to be able to do that and to finally tell all of your stories and to create a platform that documents the collective narrative of this campus. But I gotta tell you, every time I sit down to think about it, I keep saying the F word again and again. Future, future, future. The whole reason I wanted to share my story with you today, especially all of you students, is to get you to start thinking about your stories, the ones you've already started here at Harper. The world is always going to be full of conflict and problems with the other. But in the grand narrative of conflict and cooperation, problems and solutions, I want to ask you, what role will you play? What headline will you give me? What stories will you tell tomorrow? Just something to think about.